I mean, I obsess about finding the right man for my life. I obsess about having enough good sex. I obsess about the kind of relationship I have with my mother. Is that normal? Am I normal? Am I too normal? When is the right moment to have kids? How do I combine that with being successful in my job? And if I do find the right man and we have kids and we're both successful, who's actually going to look after those kids? You know, is my mother going to do that? But will I want her to do that? So it's really questions of how do I organize my time? Because I really, really, really believe that every single person on this planet has the right to a life that they can enjoy and the right to a life that is free from worries. I think right now is the time that we can show these world leaders that we care. I mean, most of these guys are 50 to 60 years old. They're not going to be around for very long. And they're also rich. They don't have a worry about environmental destructions. I'm 20 years old. I'm this random guy from a little village near Cambridge. I'm not a genius. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a politician. But I'm here. I'm having an influence. I'm having an influence on the people. I'm having an influence on the process because I'm here. And so I want to share with you this quote by Martin Luther King that he spoke in 1967. And he spoke it, of course, about ending the war in Vietnam. But I think it actually rings more true about today's crisis. He said, "We are now faced with the fact, my friends, that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. And we can't stop that." I mean, we don't even have much of an understanding of how this earth functions and what we can expect. We're only just beginning to scrabble, to put together all these little scientific pieces of how this earth functions. I mean, ever since Darwin, our general view of evolution has been of this fierce battle of individual creatures sort of pitted against one another in this cruel competition for always inadequate food supplies. Well, I think that we are now beginning to understand the earth as a whole. A single geobiological dance. Yes. I understand evolution as an improvised dance, where all the good steps are kept and continuously woven into new patterns of movement. So it's a kind of working out of very basic steps that you do over and over and over again in always new combinations. Now, to illustrate what I mean by this, I've actually brought some music with me today. And I'm going to step in front of this table, and I will actually improvise for you. But I would really like you to view what I'm doing there as a sort of analogy for the whole of evolution. Okay? Did you sort of get the idea of evolution there? I kind of felt it. It was there. I remember once, a few years ago, I was sitting on a tram, and I was kind of eavesdropping in on this conversation that two women were having near me. And they were speaking about this guy who was cheating on his girlfriend. You know, they were saying what an asshole he was, the inconsistencies of his behavior, the lies he was telling, and the pain that he was causing, not just his girlfriend, but also his new lover, because he wouldn't decide between one woman and the other. Now, at that time, I was myself in a bit of an awkward personal situation. I was very indecisive in certain love matters. And I was actually really ridden by this devilish behavior. I didn't know how to control myself. And I remember sitting there thinking, interesting, because just a few weeks ago, I would have known exactly what to think about this guy. I mean, he was obviously an asshole, you know, as these women were saying. But in that moment, on that tram, all I could think was how sorry I felt for the guy, and how unfair of these women to talk about him like that, because they had no idea. You know, maybe this guy was going through an emotional hell right now. Who were they to fucking judge him like that? So what was going on inside of me was that my moral standards were turning in on themselves and sort of staring each other in the face. And I remember thinking, whoa. Okay. There is not one single truth. Now, I know that this is nothing new. We all come to this point where we say, what can I as an individual do? I mean, we can't all go to Africa and work in a hospital. So what do we do when we get these feelings of moral responsibility? Whenever I think about all these things in the world that are morally ambiguous and uncomfortable, I realize that it brings me back to these identity questions that I had as a child. Why am I here? What is my place in this world? And I realize I have this answer. I remind myself that there is such a thing as uncertainty. Now that's a good thing. What were we thinking what the future can be? Some kind of communalism? A relatively low consumption, non-consumerist, playful social world? You know, where you could run around naked, wear some feathers in your hair, and not be picked up for it. That's not too big a dream. So what I want people to imagine is that every building, every home, every office, every factory, every technology park, every rural urban building in all of Europe converted over the next 30 years to your own personal power plant. So we collect the energy coming from the sun, coming from the wind, coming from under the ground. These new buildings will actually create more energy